That's right, Jim. Let's get a question or two before we wrap things up. This one was sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Andrew in Melbourne, Australia.
Good day, mate.
I had a question in relation to when Mark Mero was signed to WWE in 1996. Apparently, Vince McMahon loved the Johnny B. Bad character from WCW, which is why Mero got a big guaranteed deal despite the likes of Steve Austin and Mick Foley, who signed around the same time getting standard contracts. My question is, who would have shown Vince McMahon any footage of Johnny B. Bad, given you have said numerous times he only watches and will ever only watch his own programming? And did you ever find out why Vince McMahon was such a big fan of Johnny B. Bad?
Well, I mean, look at the gimmick. That was probably the one thing in WCW during that time period that was more WWF-like than anything else, a Little Richard impersonator. So it's not hard to see that Vince would like the gimmick. And here was the thing. I don't know who first brought Mark Mero to Vince's attention. I don't want to point any fingers. When you point a finger, you got three more pointing back at you. But Bruce Pritchard was so happy to have Mark come into the fold. And here's the thing. Mark Mero was not a bad person. And I'm not trying to just say, oh, Mark Mero should be boiled in oil and have his fat sold for soap or anything like that. But that was when I first got there. I'd only been on the creative team a couple months. I remember this specifically. Because, again, with the first time I heard from Bruce that, oh, we're talking to Mark Mero. And I had to ask who, because I didn't know that was Johnny B. Bad's real name then. I'd never met the guy, right? I said, serious? I said, well, wait a minute. I said, can he be Johnny B. Bad? Because, at that point, I figured WCW has contracts like we do up here. Oh, no, he can't be Johnny. Then what do you want him? What's he going to do? Well, he'll be Mark Mero. What? Mark Mero had never wrestled anywhere before. He trained, to my assumption and understanding, pretty much at the power plant, and he was Johnny B. Bad from the start, and he trained to be Johnny B. Bad. He was Johnny B. Bad. He'd never been anybody else, and he'd never been in a main event position down there. It was an 8-minute Johnny B. Bad match and out. That was what he had been taught to do, Mark Mero. And so I said, well, what's his gimmick going to? Well, we'll work that out. And he's brought his wife with him. She's beautiful. What? And then that's when I found out about, before she was Sable. I don't know where Sable came from, but her name's Rena. She was Mark Mero's wife, and she came to the contract meeting with Mark Mero to meet Vince.
Hey, can I stop you for a second there?
Yes.
I've heard Shane Douglas talk about when he signed to be Dean Douglas, Vince was kind of insistent on bring your wife. Was that a big Vince thing, kind of get a relationship with the wife?
I don't know. I didn't know that he asked Shane Douglas to bring his wife. I always was under the assumption that fucking Rena came with Mark, whether anybody liked it or not, because she wanted to be on television. Because why else would she come and be all dressed up and have this meeting, and suddenly she's his valet when she has never appeared in the professional wrestling industry before, ever. And the people in WCW must have known something. But point being, sometimes Vince wanted to, to meet the family, and he wanted to talk to people and get ideas about. That's where he would come up with these bad gimmick ideas, because he would find out some tidbit of something that somebody did as a hobby or in their private life or in their background, and he'd fixate on that, and then you couldn't get anything else past him. He'd be fixated on that. That's why Bill Irwin became a goon, because he once played some kind of junior hockey in Minnesota. So I don't know about Shane's wife. At least she didn't get a valet job, but Rena did. And then as soon as Bruce told, well, we're going to use her, I said, what? He's a baby face, right? Yeah. Okay. Why has he got a girl? Why has he got a girl that looks like that? He's going to get all kinds of heat. So I said, what is going on here? You're specifically because apparently Vince McMahon wants to make this woman a valet. You're going to use her with him. And he's signing him for guaranteed money because he loves the gimmick that he's done all of his career that he won't be able to do here. So I felt like Chris Hansen on fucking To Catch a Predator. What is your plan here? What was your plan here? And they didn't have one. And then come to find out, there was no, Mark Mero couldn't be Mark Mero as a wrestler because he had no idea who the fuck that was because he'd never tried, never thought about it. And then when they did think about it, well, he used to be an amateur boxer. Well, let's give him a boxing gimmick. Well, that was a fart in church.
Yeah, the Wild Man was better.
Well, then let's make him
gimmick.
the Wild Man with fucking Sable, the jungle cat. Well, then they're looking at fucking Sable because Mark Mero was as boring as watching a goddamn milk curdle. And then they switched him heel, and then he's going to browbeat Sable, and they're going to try to do Savage and Elizabeth. But guess what? He wasn't Randy Savage either. And then the brawl for a and then it ended up Sable power bombed Mero on television. And then Austin called Vince the next day and said, who am I going to be working with in the main event of the Los Angeles Forum show next weekend now? Instead of Mark Mero, who just got power bombed on TV by a 125-pound woman. And then I think he got hurt and he ended up carrying Sable's bags in for a while. And that was the last we saw of him. But there was no plan. And there was no there. He's a nice enough fellow. But he just didn't know how to do anything other than be Johnny B. Bad. And they, gave him a guaranteed contract that all these other top guys didn't have at that time and got heat on him. He had his, wife accompany him to the ring to take all the attention away from him. He's a boring guy because he's a very nice, religious, upright, upstanding guy in real life. So he's as boring in real life as he was on TV. And there you go.